stream's back up. Sorry about that, my game blue screened. It has a tendency to do that, but it's a free game. You can't really ask too much of it. What are we talking about?
We were transitioning to like stats and stuff, and we got right past that. So, I mean, if y'all haven't covered elements yet, y'all can cover that next.
Oh, I did want to say something really quick. I'm not sure if I will. I've seen people make sword guides at a lower level. I might make a sword guide. I'm not sure. If anyone wants a sword guide, then I guess I'll make one. Oh, I've got comments now.
It's fucking mer.
Pappy me fist.
It's because we left him out. Does he feel left out?
Does he feel left out?
Shut mouth. But yeah, so if sword guides are what people want, and I guess I'll make a sword guide at some point. But in terms of elements, I guess we can move on to elements next. We'll move on to elements and skill force.
CC.
So with Mer not here, sure. Okay, buddy. With elements, there are a lot of bosses that are, well, pretty much every boss in the game is weak to at least 2 elements. And that's due to the fact that some weapons don't have certain elements. For example, sword does not have rain. It just doesn't. There's Lunge Step Sublime, which for some reason gives rain element. I don't know why. There's the Vertex skill, which came out with the Silhouette Mags, which is absolute hot garbage. There's the skill that comes with the Rev 3, and if you can manage to keep that skill on your Rev 3, then fair play. And then there's Ogies, so the Asame Mega Wave, and I think that's about it in terms of like rain skills that sword has access to. Like we don't have rain element, so if something is weak to rain, for example Eldritch Beast, it's weak to rain, but it's also weak to wind, which is something sword users do have. We do have wind. For example, I'm going to grab my Gale. This is personally one of, if not the best wind weapon that I have at my disposal as of right now. And it's a really good wind weapon. Unfortunately, I don't have the right skills or Ogies to put on it, so I don't really use it as much as I'd like. But it gives me, at 130, it gives me 60 wind, 60 slice, skill force attack. Like, it's a really good weapon, and the fact that it'll give me skill force and 60 wind and slice makes it one of the best wind swords in the game at the moment. Like there are very, very few that come close. If you want more of a universal, like a 2-element weapon, then you can go for this one, which is the Arcane Sword Redux. Unfortunately, if you don't have the recipe, I'm not sure if the event will ever come back out. But you might find someone who is selling the recipe, which is very, very slim, because the event came out like 2 years ago. But a good fire wind weapon would be the Gargoyle Weapon. A lot of people sleep on the Gargoyle Weapons, but the Gargoyle Weapons are actually like really good. Like I know Mephistopheles is a pretty weak boss, but I can kill Mephi with a gargoyle staff. I'm not a staff user by any means, but I can kill Mephi with a gargoyle staff. And like, gargoyle weapons, they are still some of the, considering how much time it takes to make them, they are some of the best weapons in the game just because they are so easy to make. Like this, my Nova, my Flame Tusk Nova, I used this weapon for the longest time. Like, until I got my Earth when I was like 125, which is 10 levels after you can use this weapon. Until I got my Earth, this was my go-to weapon. Like, I used this in the Blood Rapier Arcane, and it's still a really good weapon. Like, it hits damage cap if you build your character correctly, and I think it gives, what, 60 fire and 40 wind? I think that's right. Yeah, 60 fire, 40 wind. It does have a negative to rain and ice, which is unfortunate, but it makes sense. It also gives skill force, and I'll come to skill force in a minute. But
it's also a good thing to note that each gargoyle, the weapons you get from that specific gargoyle, will help you defeat your next gargoyle.
Yes. So what I'd recommend doing to anyone who is attempting to make their gargoyle weapon, I'd recommend getting a Satan weapon first, using the Satan weapon to kill Sleet Sword, which is the Ice Gargoyle, which is weak to Lightning and Mountain. Satan weapon obviously being Lightning. Using the Satan weapon to kill Sleet, using the Sleet weapon to kill Infernal, and then using the Infernal weapon to kill Levin. Because each gargoyle is weak to another gargoyle's elements exactly. So, for example, we'll pull out, this one, right? My Ice-Tailed Fafnir Rhyme. So, the Flame Tusk is, it's fire and wind, but its negatives are rain and ice. You look at the Ice-Tailed Fafnir, its positives are ice and rain. So that means that the Ice-Tailed Fafnir will work perfectly at killing Infernal. Perfectly at killing Infernal. And then the Infernal will work perfectly for killing... I have 11 Odachi.
I have my Levy sword out right now. Just look at that.
It's alright, I've already found it. So the 11 Odachi will give 60 lightning and 40 mountain, but is weak to fire and wind, which is exactly what the Infernal one is. Infernal will work against Levin, Levin will work against Sleet, and then Sleet will work against Infernal. It's sort of like a trifecta, so each one is weak to another one, and a good jumpstart is to just make the Satan weapon. It's a really easy weapon to make, and it has decent elements as far as I'm remembering. Each weapon will increase the stat of you need. So if you're using sword, odachi, or axe, it'll increase your power stat, which will give you bonus health, bonus damage, bonus affinity, so on and so forth. And that works for each weapon. So the staff, which I have here, increases lightning plus 40, SP plus 30%, mind plus 24. That mind plus 24, so you'll see my mind at the moment is 55 plus 13. If I now swap to using my staff, which is a Satan staff, it's now 55 plus 47, which allows me to use stuff like Cure 7, and it gives me that freedom to really use the better like heals and support skills. And if you want to check to see what elements you're using, you click on status details and your elements will come up on the right hand side. So there's fire, ice, lightning, dark, rain, mountain, wind, holy, poison and flight. Flight, it can work, but there are no mags that really increase flight to a point where it's useful, and there are no bosses which are weak. There aren't many bosses which are weak to flight. There are some, but they're few and far between.
It's a niche. Nothing is like weak to flight. Nothing is resistant to flight. It's just there.
It's just sort, yeah. It's there for the sake of making it so there are 10 elements, really. So they didn't have 9. It's just it's a placeholder. And then there are these. So there's slice, impact, and pierce. And if you want to check to see what you're fighting, the enemy you're fighting is weak to, you can go on to where it says story and then bestiary. Click all, and then this is where you'll find a list of things that you've encountered and defeated. In order to see exactly what they're weak to, for example, Odin, I've only collected 3 monster cards. You'll need to collect 5 in order to see everything. But if you collect 5 monster cards, you can really see what they're weak to. And you do an example of what's Satan. There you go, as we're on this topic. I've killed Satan 859 times. I've collected 89 monster cards, and it shows me exactly what he's weak to. Very weak to holy element, strong against fire, very strong against lightning, very strong against dark, rain strong, and wind very strong. And it doesn't say here, but ice also works on Satan. And let's see if we can find a better one. We'll do Levin. Okay, so very weak against fire, ice, strong, lightning, very strong, dark, very strong, rain, strong, mountain, very strong, wind, very weak, holy, strong, poison, strong, slice, strong, impact, bit, strong, pierce, strong. Does not exist. I have no idea what that could be. I can't remember.
Might be
And
multi-hit.
yeah, it could be multi-hit because critical resistance is very strong. But it could be multi-hit. So if you have any questions about what something is weak to, and you don't have the monster cards, you could ask me. I can try and find out, or you can type in what it is you're killing into Google. You'll have to type, for example, Lucifer and then Onigiri. If you just type Onigiri, it'll come up with recipes of rice balls. But if you type in Lucifer, Onigiri, top one should be a fandom page, and it'll tell you what they're weak to, what they can drop, so on and so forth. And that works for just about anything. There are some things that don't show up. And some things don't show up, and for them you can either ask me, or if I'm not on, then you might be able to find Oro. If not, then you can try sending like a question to another higher level. I'm not sure if they'll answer. If they don't answer, don't take it again. Like, don't try and hold it against them. They're probably just busy, or they're AFK, or they're on a boost. And if you can't find what they're weak to, then there are a million different things you can do in this game. Like, find something else to do. You don't just keep brute forcing your way through something if like trying to find something out doesn't work, because brute forcing is an even worse idea. Like, let's say for example, you are a spear user, right? Spear user, you're a 120 spear user, you've got a fused 2 105s and a sparrow, right? You don't have a lot of element, but the element you do have is lightning. And you're about to fight Purple Mephi for the first time. And every time you try and use Asura, he just dies. Don't just keep trying to use lightning, because it will not work. There's a tip for if you're using the Divine Possession, and that's if you feel like you're about to die, VG swap out, wait 3 seconds, and then you can VG swap back in. However, if you die in the VG swap, you will have to recharge the Vanguard. If you swap out, it will allow you to swap back in 3 seconds. It's very straightforward. It's very easy to do, and luckily Asura does work really well against Purple Mephi. Unfortunately, his moves are mostly split 50-50 between fire and mountain, and Purple Mephi is, I think, only neutral to fire, but is weak to mountain.
Yep, neutral to fire, weak to mountain.
So if you don't have fire and you're relying solely on mountain, then the skills as Asura won't do as much, because you're only basically, it's like how can I explain this? It's like trying to dig a hole, but you're using your bare hands as opposed to a shovel. You're really limiting yourself as to what you can do, and it's not the end of the world if that's all you have, but if you have the option to use both elements, then obviously use them. Even if you have like in the beginning anyway, even if you have like 100 of one element, whereas you could have 80 of both, just use 80 of both. The extra 20 of one won't outdo the lack of 80 of the other. It's not the best idea, and I think we should probably move on to Skill Force now. So Skill Force is kind of its own thing almost. It has its own tab. So here you'll see that your Skill Force is split up depending on what weapon you're using. For me, I have more Skill Force for sword because I'm a sword main. And basically how Skill Force works is it increases the power for skills. So if there's no real, I can't remember if there's a real way of working out how much Skill Force does how much damage, but I don't think so, because it also depends on what level your skills are, and levels come with their own Skill Force, as you can see here, or, well, not really very well with meditation, but hang on, there you'll see with resurrection or cure, yeah, cure's a better one. It has a skill level of 47, and then next to that it has a force, and the force is basically the skill force for the skill itself. And obviously the more skill force a skill has in general, the more it will do. with Cure, it'll heal more, with certain it'll do more damage, but with the Skill Force in the Skill Force tab, it's basically increases your damage for like each skill, like the base damage. The non-crit damage, this increases. It'll increase the overall damage per skill. Now, Affinity also increases your damage. It's good to have decent Affinity, and it's really good to try and balance them out, because that's basically what this game is. You have to try and balance out what you can with what you have. So let's say you could have really high attack. I can show you a build actually. So let's say I do that with where is it? I don't know if I have it anymore. Oh, I do. There. Okay, so that, and then I think that'll do, and then put on this. So at the moment with my current build I have 90,000 attack, but my skill force is 45. That's not good. You want your skill force to be high, but you also want your attack to be high, and it's just a balancing game. Like your attack doesn't have to be stupid, but having a decent amount of attack will help you. Good skill force to go for is about 350, I'd recommend, just for something, just like a goal, a temporary goal. Go for 350. Obviously you can go for more if you really feel comfortable, like, oh, I'm gonna get more skill force, then go for it. But if not, then 350 will work for most of the game. But if you have 350 skill force and only like 17k attack, that's not going to do much. You have to balance it out, and you also have to make sure you're hitting the boss with the right elements, because if you hit them with the wrong elements, no matter how much attack and skill force you have, it just do nothing. Like, what's a good Hades? When you first get to Sekigahara, Nether Sekigahara, you'll have to do like 2-3 dungeons, and then you fight Hades, like normal basic Hades. If you try and hit Hades with dark element, you may as well be trying to hit him with a piece of celery. It's not going to do a lot. But if you go in with I think Ice Works or Holy, either one of those, you'll do great. Like, making sure you have the right elements is really important. It's hard to explain, but it is basically just a balancing act. It's like you're in the circus and you have to try and balance all of these things to make sure that you're doing the best you can. We did start typing the event mags. We could touch on the event mags, making sure we get them over and done with properly. Someone I spoke to yesterday said that the event mags were practically impossible to get for a free-to-play player. I believe that's what they said, don't quote me on that. But if you're a free-to-play player, then they are harder to get, but they're not impossible. in the event at the moment, which is in Kyoto, I'd recommend it. Everyone go and do it. Even if you're like level 60, just go there. See if you can find someone to help you do the event, because there are accessories in the item exchange that will give you bonus rewards for clearing the dungeon. And the mags you can get, they do require you to be level 110 to put them on. But getting to 110 is fairly easy. It's nowhere near as hard as it used to be leveling up. But I recommend everyone go and get probably at least 3 of each mag, which I know sounds steep, but they really are good mags. I don't have 3 of each. I have 1 Cortarion and 2 Lucent mags. And I'll just show you what they do again, because I showed you before the stream crashed. So rank 5 plus skill force plus 100 if 125 or more, rank 4 plus skill force plus 25 if 130 or more, rank 4 skill force plus 25 again. Holy element plus 50, dark element minus 50, physical attack speed plus 10, cooldown cut plus 10, and decreased durability reduction by 30%. Now, I do need to explain the decreased durability reduction by 30%. Basically, your weapons will die 30% faster while using these Magatamas, which is a small price to pay considering the difference between them and a 105. The 105s are nowhere near as good as these, in my opinion. They don't give as much skill force, they don't give you as much element, and they're just really solid mags. Decreased durability reduction is decreasing a reduction. So if you increase the reduction, you're adding to the I can't think of how to describe it properly. You're adding a percentage on a sale, for example. So increasing a reduction is increasing the percentage on a sale of an item. In this case, the item is your durability. So decreasing the reduction is basically making it worse. It's making it more expensive to do what you want to do. I don't know if that made any sense to anyone else but me, but fuck you, I'm sticking to it.
You want me to explain it in a different way?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I heard the steam coming out of your ears. So that's happened before. Okay, so decreased durability reduction. Basically, you are decreasing the amount of which you have reduced your durability costs. So the more durability decrease you have, the more it's going to cost. And the more increased durability reduction that you have, the less durability you take away, obviously, because you're increasing the amount of reduction that you have. So therefore, let's say you had... a good example of it is to go into the Sakata Kentoki dungeon. And literally you can find an Onigashima, and if you pan over her little bonus in the beginning of the dungeon, you'll see increased durability reduction by 100%. So this makes it to where none of her skills take away durability from her weapon, which is a good thing for it to run out. So that's a good way to, easily explain it. So if you happen to get a Great Orna that says increased durability reduction by 40%, then all of the durability, let's say like you do lunge step and it takes away 5 durability at 0% durability reduction, that's normal. If you have it at, let's say, 80% reduced durability reduction is going to cost, let's say, 15. I don't know the exact math, but let's just say it's 15. And if it's the opposite of that, if it's 80% increased durability reduction, then it's going to cost not 5 anymore. It's going to cost like 2 or 1. So that's a different way of explaining it. I think you have a much easier method for everybody to know. That's how I explain it to myself when I actually figured out the difference between the two.
Yeah, I was just drawing a blank in terms of a way I could explain it that would make sense, because it made sense in my head, but when it comes to say it, I was like, well, what the fuck do I say?
As soon as I heard your like cries for help for us to join in, I'm like,
It's like, I got it, don't worry. I've had to explain this to people more than once.
So yeah, basically decreased durability reduction bad, increased durability reduction good. This mag good, price that you have to pay is very small. Same thing with the Corterion mag, which is up here. It's basically the same thing, but it increases fire element and takes away rain element. Other than that, it's identical. And yeah, I recommend everyone pick up these mags. And it's not terribly difficult, because the game basically gives you 9 free runs a day, where you get to use 3 Vanguards in the dungeon 3 times each. Each one of them, if you don't have any of the bonuses, like any of the accessories or Vanguards or whatever, it'll give you 20 of each map per run, which is still a decent amount.
quick note. Whenever you are collecting the materials in the dungeon, you will see the number that you get with a parenthesis number. All the parenthesis number tells you is how much extra you got. The number next to it is your full amount that you have acquired.
Yes. Okay. So I'll actually go and do one of the dungeons just to really show what you're saying, just to make sure people get it properly. So I'll do one, show it, and then come back. So yeah, I'll set this up. Okay. Thank you. So while you're in the dungeon, the Vanguards you'll be given will be Murasaki, Riku, and Tsukumo. Each one of them will have their own section, as you'll see when I arrive. Like their own way of entering the dungeon. You'll have to talk to Riku to enter the dungeon anyway, but the Vanguard you'll be given will be depending on which one you pick. And in the dungeon themselves, the Vanguards will be given a damage buff. So they won't normally hit this amount of damage. This is just for inside this dungeon. It's just for these runs. If you get the Vanguard, don't expect them to hit this amount of damage. This is just for these, just for this dungeon, just for this event. Actually, I'll put on a different mag. I'll put on this. So it's not guaranteed that you'll hit great damage. Even in this event, if you're new or like newer or slight or returning or whatever, it's not guaranteed that you'll hit this damage. They do have a damage buff. It's not it's not how it'll be for everyone. So we'll do Murasaki, for example. It says it requires a level 70. The event dungeons lie. The hell version's level 120, and I can't do it on my own, so the event dungeons lie. It also depends on what elements you have. If you have the right elements, then sure, you could probably do it at a lower level than I am now. But if not, then I don't really know what really you're expecting, because the events aren't easy without these Vanguards. They are tricky. They're not fun, but they are worth it. Okay, so nearly dead. Obviously, the Vanguards that you'll get won't be hitting like 11 mil, 29 mil, whatever. They won't be hitting this damage. Okay, so this is what Wheat was talking about. Received red and white fur times 80, and then in parentheses plus 60, and the same thing for charred paper. So the plus 60 is the bonuses that get that. For me, I have a Vanguard, and it's what the Vanguard gives me is the plus 60, and then the 80 is the total. So you only get 80, you don't get like 140 as you would think. It is just 80. The plus 60 is just what you get from bonuses, whether that be Vanguards, accessories, whatever. And I'll show you quickly what the bonuses are. I'll click on the dungeon when the game decides to load. Okay. So bonus. These are the things you can get bonuses for. So befriending Murasaki, befriending Riku, befriending Tsukumo, 6.99, and then equipping these accessories. The Murasaki, Riku, and Tsukumo accessories are ones that you will have to spin in the gacha to get, which is why they give you 15 of each, as opposed to the rest, which are very easy to get by comparison. The like the Lunar Cannon, Gleam, the Mech Wing, Lunar Light, so on and so forth. So the mechanical wings and the cannon, I believe you get at the end of the story. You might be able to get them from this event, but all of these ones, like the Utsuki, Lantern, Umbrella, Wisteria Lantern, Wisteria Umbrella, they all come from the item exchange. And the item exchange is here. You talk to Tsukumo, item exchange, and then you can buy, oh, there's the mechanical wings, and you have to put these on before you go into the dungeon, and it'll give you the +5 of each, which will help getting the Magatamas a lot easier. These are the Magatamas, and they have specialized versions which do require you to be 127 in order to equip. but they are really handy. Really handy little mags. They do require a Fox Fiend's Venom Sac, which you can get through running the Tsukumo dungeon or the normal Hell dungeon, but you can also buy them for the 2 other materials that you get, so the red and white fur, the charred paper. It will cost you 1,000 of each, but it is perfectly possible to get the normal Magatamas without spending money, as well as the specialized ones. I myself am going for a couple of the specialized ones. You can also get these, the drop boost, the XP boost, Ryu boost, as well as a lot of other really good items in this item exchange at the moment. Like the durability tickets, I'm actually going to buy these. But durability tickets, they're really handy because obviously if you have, for example, 4 of the event mags, your weapons will die really quickly because you'll have plus 120 decreased durability reduction. So you will want your weapons to have as much durability as possible, like my Nova or the Rhyme not so much, but my Lucid Moon. They both have 7,000. Most of the weapons that I use do have 7,000 durability. Just because it's really, really important to have as much durability as possible, because when you're on boost, you don't want to have to stop to go repair your weapons every, 2 or 3 runs. You want to just keep going. And I suppose that'll take us into Vanguards next. So, we can touch on titles. Yeah, we can do titles now. Okay, so titles are another important thing. I know there's going to be a lot of information in here, in these 2 live streams, but they are important. So to get titles, you need to get to where you are introduced to Amaterasu. The higher level Amaterasu, the more titles you will be able to use, and titles will do different things. For example, the title I'm using, which I won't be able to show you because once you have it equipped, it doesn't show you what it's...
show it in the status screen.
Yeah, it's in status.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, so I never open up my status screen. Yeah, so Succession, this will be what your title does. My title is called Date Masamune. It increases my sword affinity, Odachi affinity, and axe affinity all by 60%. And that works for me because I use all 3 of those weapons, sword, Odachi, and axe. But obviously if you, for example, are a strictly sword user, I only know this because I was a strictly sword user for a while, you would want to probably go for Tyranno Makaseido, which still has 9 slots in. Or if you don't have access to that one yet, there is another one, I'm not sure where it is, but it somewhere. Anyway, it's called Nagakura Sinpachi, which increases your sword affinity by 50, there it is, by 50 and power plus 4. And there are still 197 slots in this one left, just because everyone is using either Date Masamune or Tyranno Makaseido or whatever else they could use for Odachi or axe in terms of Date Masamune. But for sword, everyone's probably using Nagakura Tyranno Makaseido and Date Masamune. But they don't only increase affinities. For example, Asugi Kenshin will increase for Slice, Holy, Fire, Pierce, and Impact. All by a decent amount. There's Takeda Shingen, which increases Mountain, Wind, Fire, and Sword Affinity. Oda Nobunaga, Dark, Sword, Critical, and Power. And then there's some which no one has for, I don't know. This one has 2. I mean, like, some of these, they're really important. Having a title which works for the weapon you're using is just as important as having mags that work for the weapon you're using. If you're a staff user and you're using a sword title, it doesn't make any sense. If you're an axe user and using a 1 title, it doesn't make any sense unless it gives you an element that you're lacking in naturally. As you saw with the Asugi Kenshin title, it gives you like Holy Element. If you're a wand user, wand users don't have a Holy Element. They have a negative to Holy Element naturally because their 105s, their Fuse, their Tempest all take away Holy Element because they are Dark Element Magatamas. So getting the Asugi Kenshin title as a wand user is not a bad idea. But it also makes sense for things like Odachi, because Odachi has really good Slice Element, and it increases Slice Element as well as Holy Element, which are 2 of Odachi's strongest things. Their strongest elements, Slice and Holy. Another good element for Odachi is its main element, which is Wind, which is what the Magatamas increase naturally. They increase Wind. And, like, yeah, titles are important. What are we going to do now? Oh, Vanguards. Yeah, let me just cross off what we have done. We did that. We might cut this short. So we'll do Vanguard quick. And we will actually, yeah, we'll finish up because there's not really a lot else that we have to talk about. It's literally just Vanguards and inventory management. Okay. So Vanguards, there's a couple of things to know about Vanguards. One, it doesn't matter what weapon you're using, you can use any Vanguard. For a while, people were saying that you couldn't use, for example, Miyamoto Musashi if you were a wand user, because she's a sword. She's a sword user. You can tell that by going to the edit skills and the weapon next to her, like the picture of the weapon next to the name is a sword. That's just a normal sword. Even though she technically has 2, she herself only holds 1 because the other one is being held by her demonic arm. Like, so although she does have 2, she herself only holds 1, which makes her a single sword user. And people were saying, oh, if you're a wand, then if you're a wand user, then you can't use Miyamoto Musashi. But that doesn't matter, because Vanguards will just take the strongest skill force you have and use that. So if you were to look now, you'd see that all of my skill force, apart from Odachi, because the weapon I'm holding takes away 60% Odachi affinity, they are all 449 for rank 5 and above. So it doesn't matter what I'm using. However, if I was to swap out knowledge for that. Now, even though, like, I would be holding this Odachi to Vanguard swap because it has higher attack, and we'll get onto why the attack is important in a second. Even though I'd hold this while I was Vanguard swapping, it would use the skill force from my sword, which would be 415 at the moment because everything else is lower. So it will just use the highest skill force, which is 415, and it would use that for your Vanguard. It doesn't matter what Vanguard you use, it's the same for all of them. So even if I wanted to use, what would be a good one? Inuchia Broken Seal, right? I only have one scroll, so she's a wand user for me at the moment because I haven't unlocked the spear and twin sword variants. She is a wand user, but even though she's a wand user, I can still use her perfectly fine because the skill force I have just gets translated into whatever the Vanguard is, and the elements also transfer over. Now there's some skepticism as to whether the elements from your weapons transfer over to your Vanguard. I'd argue that they do, just from the experiments that I've done, but some people argue that they don't. And from what I've seen, the elements from my weapons have been transferring over to the elements for my Vanguards. So lightning element is Inuchio's. So because of the Lucid Moon giving me 70 lightning, I'd have 145 before, and Inuchio I think gives me 100 lightning element, I think. Yeah, so I'd have 245 after VG swap, which is 5 off of max element, and that would be perfectly fine. But as I only have one scroll for Inuchio, she is not the best, and I will point out that the more scrolls you have for a Vanguard, the better they are. However, you do not want to put all, like for example for Miyamoto, you could only have a max of 5 scrolls. After that, scrolls become pretty much useless. So you do want to level up your Vanguard before you put scrolls in. Otherwise, you'll just end up with a 5 scroll, and with Miyamoto in particular, there's a couple of others that do this, but their max level is 150. Most Vanguards have a max level of 100, but obviously the higher level they are, the harder it is to level them up. So you do want to level them up and then put the scrolls in, because each scroll that you add will add 10 levels to your Vanguard's overall level. So they increase the level by 10. So if I was to get my 4th scroll for Miyamoto, she would be level 109. So you do want to level up your Vanguards as high as you can before you put your scrolls in, because that'll just make getting them to their max level way easier, as opposed to doing the opposite, which would be to put all 5 into Miyamoto and then doing the last 100 levels all by feeding her weapons and such. It'll take a lot longer. If you want, yeah, so you'll see that with Miyamoto, she's weak to soul type, strong against monster, strong against spectre, and weak to beast. If you look at an enemy, or I think you can look at it in the bestiary as well, it'll tell you what type they are. Yeah, next to their name. So the Gloomdarimmers are an M, that's a monster type. The Kyotsu is a soul type. Swamp Sticky, beast type. Sorry, Spectre, not Soul. So, yeah, that's a Spectre type, not a Soul type. What is a Soul type? We'll find one eventually.
Visual loading, right?
Oh, there's one. Ahriman. Ahriman's a Soul type. So, SL, Soul, M, Monster, B for Beast, and a normal S is for Spectre. You can go through your Vanguards, if you have any, and see what they are strong or weak to. If it doesn't say strong or weak to something, that means they are neutral to it. That means they'll do... They won't do the best damage, but they'll do enough to kill it. Whereas if they are weak to it, you may as well try and David and Goliath it and just throw rocks at their ankles. It's really no point. So the more scrolls you have for a Vanguard, the longer the duration you'll have them for is. So for a 1 scroll, you'll have 60 seconds, and then for every scroll after that, it'll add 30 seconds. If it's a 5 scroll max Vanguard, there are some which do have extras, like Sanzu, for example. Sanzu has 10 scrolls, I have 7. It doesn't matter, she's dog shit anyway, but they'll increase by 15 seconds each, or I think it's 15, might be 25, I don't know. And I believe Lancelot is another one which goes to 150. Judging by this, it looks like it. Yeah, 150. So just make sure you level up your Vanguards before you put scrolls into them. Now, there are items you can get from events which are called Articles of Awakening scrap. You can get them for Vanguards, for mounts, and for assist characters. You need to collect 15 of them, and then go to the Black Cat in Onigashima, the Yorozu Cat, and you can exchange them for an Articles of Awakening for a Vanguard, or a mount, or an assist, or whatever. And then you can feed that into your Vanguard, and that will give them an extra scroll. However, I do believe it will not give them the 10 levels that a normal scroll would. It will just give them the abilities of an extra scroll. It just won't give them the 10 extra levels. But I think the last thing to touch on is inventory management. Oh, actually, while we're on topic of Vanguards, I'll mention pay-to-win Vanguards versus free-to-play Vanguards. So, a pay-to-win Vanguard at the moment is Medea Keiji. I don't have Medea Keiji, but a lot of pay-to-win players do have Medea Keiji at 5 scrolls. She is one of 2 Vanguards at the moment, which has a mount form. I do have the other one. I do have Shiro, who is 1 scrolled. This guy. And he does have a mount form, as you can see here. He has normal skills and then his mount skills. And you can't change these. The same with Keiji. The skills that are on the weapon are the skills that are on the weapon. You cannot change them to anything else than what they are. You can't swap them out for something. You can't have 2 of the same skill. But there are only 2 Vanguards that do have a mount form. Another pay-to-win Vanguard is Honda. I don't have her at the moment, sadly, but she is at 5 scroll. Like, even at 1 scroll, she's insane, but at 5 scroll, she's basically unstoppable. She can kill pretty much every boss in this game. And a pay-to-win mount, which unfortunately I also don't have, is Makami. I can show you Makami because he's in the Nagakura at the moment. He is an ice wolf. He makes speed running very quickly because he can just dash into everything and kill it. I think he's in one of these. There. So this is Makami. He is the go-to mount for speedrunning at 5 scrolls anyway. He is a very good mount for speedrunning. In terms of leveling mounts, it's not the same as leveling Vanguards. So leveling Vanguards, you have to feed them weapons. Mounts, you just have to have them out whenever you run a dungeon, and they'll get XP passively as you kill stuff. You don't really need to use them in the dungeon, they just need to be there. And I think that's
What about good spots to get to level up your Vanguards and zones? Good areas to farm.
Oh, that's a good idea. Why don't you touch on that subject? Will I roll myself a cigarette?
Ah, yes, of course you roll yourself a cigarette. Okay, no, I don't. If I can remember like half the shit. Anyway. So, with leveling up mounts, as this tier touched on earlier, how they are a passive level up. So while you're running through a dungeon, whenever you get XP, your mount will get a separate pool of XP. Now, if you use something like an EXP booster, it will also count for your mount as well. For a good place to farm, that would be the Arcanes, which, Flex, you want to touch in on how to unlock that, because I kind of forget.
Unlocking the Arcanes is quite far into the story. In terms of a good place to farm Mount EXP at a lower level, going to Kyoto and doing Yakumo Temple is probably the easiest way, because it's basically just 5 bosses in a row. It's very easy to get Mount EXP, and it'll take about a minute. Continue.
It won't take too long. And then for Vanguards, since they have 2 different ways of leveling up, you either have a consumable called I don't know how to fully pronounce it, Kampaipu or something like that, along those lines, which have 3 tiers: bronze, silver, and gold. Bronze being the worst, gold being the best, and they each give their own set of XP for Vanguard. For the weapon farming, since you can use weapons to upgrade your Vanguards, there is a dungeon. It's in, if I remember correctly, it's in Oshu Highway, right?
Correct.
Oshu Highway, and it is called Alluring Caverns. You'll go in there, recommendedly on Hell. If you can't do Hell, or it's fine. You can use a drop boost to help out, and just pick up some weapons, identify them, feed them to your Vanguards. They like to munch on weaponry, apparently. And that would be a nice little way of getting some pretty good levels for your Vanguards. For if you have extra scrolls, get them to your higher levels, feed them their scrolls, get an extra 10. Once again, don't use your scrolls in the early levels of your Vanguards. And I think that's about it for Vanguards and mounts.
So that just leaves inventory management.
The hellhole.
Now, inventory management is a bit of a tricky subject, because depending on what level you are, that will depend on, 1, how much space you have. You'll see I have 270, other people will have less, other people will have more. And you'll want to keep a hold of things that you'll need or you'll find useful. Some things I have in here I won't need and never will need, but like the warped recipes and the L-Sin and so on. But making sure that you always have at least a little bit of space in your inventory is good, because if you, for example, if you're farming for a Magatama in a dungeon and you have no inventory space, I will say that if you do try and clear out your inventory, you do have a chance of crashing your game, which of course will cause the item that you found that you need to pick up to disappear, and you'll have to try and get it again, which for some items is incredibly tricky. Oh, I can show you an item which is a particular pain in the ass to grind, and it is called a Lunar Spirit Seal. It is very annoying to try and get. It is there are three main difficulties to dungeons. There is normal, hard, hell, and then sometimes there is an Oni mode. And with these, the Lunar Spirit Seals, they are probably one of the only mats in the base game, not including events and purgatoriums, where people will grind out Oni mode just to get these items. They don't even bother touching normal, hard, and hell unless they have to unlock Oni mode. Because in order to unlock Oni mode, you have to clear all three of the other difficulties, normal, hard, and hell. It doesn't matter what rank you get. Rankings obviously being anywhere from C to SS. But this is one of the mats that really does... It really can fetch quite a high price if you try and sell them. What's another tricky mat to get? Pure white plumes can be quite annoying. At the moment they're not that bad because Lucifer is, I believe, in the dungeon boost, so you can run it with energy. But if you try and run Lucifer with the story, you'll obviously have to get a white stone and a black stone per run, and trying to get, well, the amount I do now, 132 pure white plumes, by getting white stones and black stones will take a very long time. But luckily with energy you can get, I think, up to 6 pure white plumes per hell Lucifer run. Actually, I think you can get like 7, because you can get 5 in a clear reward, and you can drop 2. He might be able to drop 3, so you might be able to get 8 per run. So they're not as bad. They're really not as bad as the Lunar Spirit Seals, but there are some things that a lower level will need that a high level won't. So use your common sense and better judgment to really make sure that you have the materials that you need. Obviously things like Sinister Bones, you need them to make an Oni no Dachi, but an Oni no Dachi isn't as widely needed as it used to be. You used to have to make them for just about every weapon under the sun, whereas now they're practically unheard of. You don't really need them anymore. Tear of Eternal Knights, they're a massive pain in the ass because you have to fight Abyss in order to get them, and Abyss is an asshole. So yeah, just use your better judgment in terms of what you need and what you don't. Scrolling through my inventory now, I can see a lot of things I don't need. My game crashed again. I guess we'll leave it there.